Am I the asshole for refusing to give my brother $200,000 from our parents' inheritance after he got scammed? I 34M recently inherited $400,000 from our parents' estate after they passed away. There was a slight delay in my part in receiving the said amount because of some legal complications. My younger brother, 31M, received the same amount, but just months after their death, he was swindled out of nearly all his life savings by a shady investment scheme. Now, he's asking me to share $200,000 of my inheritance with him to help him get back on his feet. He argues that our parents would have wanted us to have equal financial standing, and that losing his money wasn't his fault. Yeah, right, and that he'd pay me back all later. I feel terrible for him, but I don't think it's fair to give up half of my inheritance for a mistake he made, no matter how unfortunate. I've been working hard, budgeting, and planning to use this money for my family's future. If I give him half, it puts my own financial security at risk. My wife supports my decision, but some relatives think I'm being greedy and heartless, saying family comes first. Am I the asshole? Edit. Wow, this blew up. I didn't think I'd need online strangers to knock sense into me. Also, it's funny how quickly someone can go from calling every hour to a direct block. I called my brother and asked him what exactly happened and told him I'd only give him the money if he told me the truth, and only the truth. He told me he invested in a company called Aramco, obviously not the real one, to a sheik, and paid his deposit of $10,000 the first time, where he got back $20,000. Then he began scaling up and always got double until $100K. He got back $110K, then was emboldened and invested $300K and was guaranteed $600K, and the rest is history. He made a police report but had no evidence to share, as he withdrew in cash and dealt in cash itself, taking only token receipts, which were fake. He kept the previously gotten amount in cash in his house. I only came to know how stupid someone can get. I told him his lack of basic common sense and greed does not constitute grounds for charity on my part, and told him to take better care of the remaining $100K. He cussed me out and told me I disappointed my parents. As for my relatives, I told them all in the group chat that I'd only match whatever they would pay to my brother, and even offered to double it. Since I was so greedy and I wanted to prove them wrong, thanks to a legendary commenter who suggested that I love you, I was cussed out there too. They're all blocked now. They told me the money got into my head. Sorry for not replying to the comments. I was really weakening in my resolve not to pay him, and you guys just snapped me back. Thank you. You all saved me.
Slight chance my 39M pregnant wife 38F had an affair. Should I ask for a paternity test or wait? My wife 38F and I 39M have been together for 12 years. I don't know how to describe it other than calling it the perfect relationship. I think in 12 years we've only ever gotten to the point of really raising our voices at one another maybe 2 or 3 times. We do everything together but always have never had issues allowing each other to lead our own lives and follow our own interests. We bought a house where we wanted. We both have good high-paying jobs that have great work-life balance. Basically, it's been everything short of perfect. We've been trying for 2 years to get pregnant, and it hadn't been happening. We were just about to start the fertility stuff when I came home from a work trip, and guess what? She's pregnant. I had this weird instant thought of, wait, I thought we didn't try during the week last month because of the fertility testing, but I couldn't remember exactly because, to be honest, we were busy at it, so I just assumed I misremembered. Over the last 4 to 5 years, my wife has gotten very friendly with a guy she works with. Let's call him Matt. Matt is slightly younger, I think 34M or so. I know him, he's married, I know his wife. They've worked together for I think 7 years or so. He's always been around him and I have been friendly. Have I ever thought something was happening? No, but I've always thought, you'd be a fool to not think there's even a 1% chance your spouse would go outside the relationship. Maybe I'm naive, but I've always seen it as a safeguard to not take my wife or any other partner in the past for granted. She's never given me a reason to think she'd do that, but anything is possible. So about a month ago, I'm out of state for work and she's at home. I ask her what she's doing earlier in the day and she says Matt is coming by for dinner. Not out of the ordinary, Matt comes by from time to time. Sometimes with his wife, sometimes without, sometimes when I'm not there. I don't think much of it. We have a security system which includes cameras both inside and outside of the house, which we installed after an unrelated incident a few years ago. They record and are live accessible by both her and I. I often use those cameras to check on the dog when I or both of us are away, as the rest of the system is monitored by a company in case of an alarm going off. She knows I check those cameras. There's a system installed where I can talk through them. I'll mess with my wife, and she will with me on them if either of us are out of town. She travels for work as well, but far less than I do. Point is, it's known that I check them often when I'm not at home. So I turn on the camera and I see my 4 months pregnant wife lying on the floor on her side with Matt sitting, straddling her legs and using a foam roller to massage her hips. So I'm like, what the fuck is this? I start rewinding through the footage and they are eating and talking normally, but then they get on the couch and get under the same blanket. Now, they are feet to feet, but that couch isn't that big. Then they moved to the floor, and that's when I logged in. Anyway, I text her. I'm still watching the cameras. They both look like deer in headlights, and he very quickly leaves. They get into an argument. She isn't mad at me accusing her, but she's adamant that nothing has or ever would happen, and that what I saw was innocent, and she was complaining about being in pain from the pregnancy, which I know is true. She's already having some issues with back pain, etc. The biggest point of that discussion was I asked, if I were there, would you two have been comfortable doing any of that in front of me? And she reluctantly admitted, no, probably not. I told her I didn't want to talk after that, and we'd talk when I got home 3 days later. That's when it hit me. What if my weird gut moment feeling about her telling me she was finally pregnant was this? What if my 1% happened and this is not my child we are having? Now it eats away at my while I'm at a hotel alone 1,000 miles away for 3 days. I reconcile with myself that I think it's less likely than more likely that something between them has happened. But basically my 1% just jumped to 10%, 20% maybe. I get home and she's on eggshells and doesn't mention it. I kind of wait to see what she's going to do. 2 days later, she finally brings it up and breaks down. Swears nothing has happened, she would never. Doesn't do anything over the top to try and prove anything, which I took as a good sign. But anyway, we talk out the issue and everything to a point at least moving forward for now. I'm still coping and dealing with it, figuring out how to retrust after all this time. I'm getting more and more understanding of the fact that they are friends. They've been friends for so long. Maybe he has intentions. But I don't see her having any, and I've never really picked up on it, and I've spent time around both of them together many, many times and never caught anything. So the thing that is destroying me right now is, if I'm wrong and something did happen, well, I can figure out how to deal with that. What if that child isn't mine? In the argument and few long conversations we've had about the situation since I've never brought that up and she's not mentioned it. Mostly because I don't want to make the situation worse and crush her if in fact she's telling the truth, which I mostly believe. The only thing I can think to do at this point is to wait until the baby is born and immediately order a paternity test in secret. Should I do that? Should I tell her and have it dealt with now? If you're a woman in her shoes and you're telling the truth, would that destroy you or your view of me? If you're lying, what would you do if I asked? I don't want to ask a super vague question, but what do I do? TLDR. Very small chance my wife of 12 years had an affair and she's 4 months pregnant, and I can't bring myself to ask for a paternity test for fear of crushing her if nothing actually happened. But I am planning on doing it in secret when the baby comes. What do I do? Update. So many comments. Thank you everyone, more than I can address directly, but I'm going to keep reading a few things. 1, stop doming me about this, thanks. 2, some have made some good points about addressing it now rather than later, and that's something that I'm considering more than I was before, thank you. 3 to those focus only on my relationship. I get it, but that's not what I'm focused on. We've been talking about it a lot. My wife and I are pretty open people with each other. I'm not saying I'm convinced nothing happened, but I'm more focused on paternity right now. 4, if I need to track Spy on Life 360, my wife, then this relationship is over already. That's not the relationship we have and not one that I ever want, and in my opinion, not one anyone should ever have. We are working on rebuilding trust. As I said in this long-winded post, my default of 1% possibility went up to 10% or so. Trust me, I'm taking my relationship seriously, but to those I've said this to already. If the kid isn't mine, then there's no longer any conversation to have. 5, I've already had this discussion with my lawyer. I don't live in a state where the birth certificate stuff will be an issue. If I have paperwork that this child isn't mine, then divorce isn't going to be much of an issue. Both of us are in an independent financial situation where it won't matter much regardless. I'll keep up with this post as long as I can and post an update when and if anything gets resolved.
I, 25F, am pregnant and my husband, 27M, suddenly wants to move back to Belarus. Suddenly he seems to think he has the right to make decisions for both of us. How do I manage this with a clear mind? My husband and I live in Sweden. I moved there with my family when I was very young as my mother is Swedish. However, he only moved here about 7 years ago. We were together for almost 6 years, and we married each other about 6 months ago. I found out I was pregnant about 2 months ago. I'm about 13 weeks pregnant now, and everything seems to be going well. All our tests have been clear so far and I am healthy. My husband and I are both very happy, and I'm quite excited to be having a baby, although nervous. I was very nervous about pregnancy, hence why it was an accidental pregnancy, but so far it's been all right, other than the nausea. This was until my husband told me he wanted to move countries. I am still a dual citizen of both Sweden and Belarus. My husband also is. However, I feel no need to go back there. The last time I did was when I was 13. I've lost most of my Russian, and I don't like the situation over there. Most of my family is here, and I've always felt more at home here than I ever have there. My husband explained he had applied for a job there, and he thinks we would have a better life there, and so would our child. I got really upset. I told him that he can't just make this decision for the both of us, and that I don't want to go back there. It scares me. I don't want my child in that environment, and I like the Swedish schools and way of life more. I knew my husband missed Belarus, but I never thought he wanted to go back. He got annoyed at me and said I wasn't thinking in the best interest of our child. I was honest and said that if he made me go back there, that I would divorce him and do everything I can to go back home, and that he can't make me, and that I'm not going and I won't go. He yelled at me and said that he was my husband, and that it's not up to me to decide how our life will be. I told him that he never said that was how he saw marriage, and he was being archaic. He seemed to calm down, but later when we were sleeping together, he got far too aggressive and his hands ended up on my throat. I managed to push him away. He didn't hurt me, but I was worried about the baby. But he then started for some reason complaining about how dramatic I was being about this whole pregnancy, and I seem to think it makes me entitled to decide everything, and he wasn't even being that rough. He's never acted like this before. It's like he thinks he can control my life, and our future child's life. We're supposed to make decisions together, not just one of us. I'm starting to think I can't stay him. It's not just about moving countries, it's the way he seems to think he's entitled to decide my whole life just because he's my husband. I've always thought that men have no more rights to make decisions than women in a marriage, as that's the point of a marriage. We're together. My brain is a mess right now. I'd always thought I loved him, but now I look at him and I realize that I just can't do this if he carries on like this, and I feel so stupid for not seeing it before. I don't know if it's the hormones or my own emotions becoming too involved, but I'm really doubting this right now.